Doing well. I do have a bit of a cold, so if I sound a little bit off, that's why. So hopefully just kind of bear with me. I know it sounds a little bit odd. But I do want to start going through your images. I'm going to pull up the first one just straight out of the camera. Okay. I think that there really is so much potential with this shot. This is so adorable, and I love any sort of reflection shot. So this is definitely something that I do, kind of feel strongly about. You had asked about the settings for the shot of my son, and at the time I couldn't find the image. So my guess was that I had probably, I can tell you that I thought I shot it like around 2.8 with a 1/800 shutter. But I actually just a few minutes ago came across the shot. So I have the exact settings, and it was actually f2.2, and it was 1/640. So not too far off of what I thought, and I had it at ISO 100, and I shot that with my 85 1.8. So I think that's the same lens you used. The reason I shot it at those settings, usually I am at about like a 2.2 or 2.8. I generally kind of, that's like my comfort zone. I do like to kind of shoot around there. And I wanted a high shutter with that image because I was focusing on the reflection, my son's reflection, not on him. So the actual reflection, there's a little bit more movement in the water than him who's just standing still. So I wanted to be able to kind of freeze that movement and get the reflection itself in focus. And I think that looking at this image, that's probably what I would have done here, mostly because of what you were saying with having to have the house or the building in the background. So what I would have probably done is make this bottom part, the actual reflection, the focus of the image. That way you can kind of cut into the shot. So I just kind of opened it and did a quick crop to show you what I mean. Something like this. So that the focus would be here, and you kind of still have the lower half of your daughter. And I think that'd be cute just to kind of have her little shoes and her legs and the balloon there. And I think that with a higher shutter and with aiming your focal point down here as opposed to up here, that we probably could have achieved that focus there. I mean, I think it's still a cute shot just as it is, even like this, just with the focus up here and kind of the ripples in the water. Definitely still a cute shot, and I would definitely still crop it this way just to eliminate any of those distractions. As far as the time of day, I think the one I shot with my son was about the same time of day, probably about an hour before sunset. And it is tough, the white balance here, and I probably would have done the same thing you did, which is you just try to find that balance. Yeah, it was a little bit too orange on her face, but at the same time a little bit too blue everywhere else. So, you run the risk of making everything way too orange or everything way too blue. So kind of finding that balance and then adjusting the rest in post-processing is what I would have done as well. So I think that you were on the right track with that. And then once you went into edit it, just kind of masking, creating a layer to remove some of that orange from her, and then adding the warmth to everything else. Not too much warmth because you do still kind of want to keep a little bit of the blue in the water, but at least in the sand and stuff behind her where the shade was falling. But even if with an image like this, you could even kind of add a little bit of sunny haze kind of back here to warm up that blue for this image. So yeah, I think that would be really cool. I love the kind of the whole idea with the reflection. I think with the balloons, it adds a different element to it, and I think that's adorable. Let me look through and see if I had any other notes on this image. Yeah, I think that was my only suggestion, was for the actual shot to maybe lower your f-stop just a bit because it was at f5. By lowering that just a bit, you'd be able to compensate for that by increasing your shutter speed. And then just trying to aim it on the watch, just if you want to, just kind of as a different idea. But even like it is how it is now, I think it still works. But I think the crop is definitely important. Let me pull up your edit. Just to kind of make sure that the focus is right here where we want the focus to be, and that the eyes aren't kind of going anywhere else to any of this in the back. But no, I think that is really cool. I like the idea there, and I think with the crop, you know, you really get a cool moment there. Okay, image number 2. Let me pull this up. Okay, so my favorite things about this, I think, with this lighting, you have some really cool. I like the idea with the shadows. I think that you have a lot of kind of opportunity to play around with those shadows and the lines. And on the planks on the floor, I think that's really cool. So you're dealing with some really cool elements here. I think that similar to this shot, I would probably crop it closer in to eliminate any of the distractions from the other lines in the image, and to just really kind of focus on her feet and her hiding body, because we really want, she's the subject, so we really kind of want that fact, like she's being cute and she's hiding and we can just see her little feet peeking out, to be the focus of the image. So the horizon line and some of this in front, I think, maybe distracts just a little bit. So that might be one way to do it, would be to kind of crop in. The only thing with this image is when you do a tighter crop, and I do have one here, but I don't love it. Let me see, I just did an example of a tighter crop. The only thing I don't like here is you kind of lose the, I like how it's off-centered here. I kind of like how you have the subject here, and then you still have kind of some of the lines here. So I think if you wanted to crop in closer and still kind of maintain that off-centered shot, you would just maybe want to shoot it kind of from a little bit more of an angle. But I do think that by cropping it in, and this is not an edited shot, I just kind of, you know, up the black and the contrast and detail clarity just a little bit in Lightroom, but it hasn't been edited. But just to give you kind of an idea, I think this way we're really, that's really what your eyes go right to, is her cute little kind of crouching body back there. So yeah, I think that eliminating the distractions in this shot as well kind of creates that focus on the simplicity of the image, which is really what we're going for, because that's kind of like the childhood element there. Let's see. Excuse me. Let me pull up. As far as the editing, see, this was your edited image. Let me pull up all three together. Straight over the camera. Yeah, I like the direction that you're going in, just kind of increasing. It's kind of what I just did quickly in Lightroom here as well, just kind of increasing a little bit of the darkness, the blacks in the image. I would probably decrease the highlights a little bit more so that you have a little bit more kind of the detail in the planks, and up the clarity a little bit. But I like the kind of direction there. I think that's kind of shows the time of day, and it is hazy, and you know, it might be different, like you said, from the typical shots that you would take. But I think it's fun to kind of play around with different types of things. So I definitely would encourage that for sure. Okay, so let me go on to the next shot. Okay. Okay, the one thing that I noticed, or the first thing that I noticed, well, first of all, her adorable little face peeking through is perfect, and that's really what you want your eyes to go through, because that is so cute with her little eyes peeking over and the I love you balloon, and it's just so perfect. So what the first thing I would want to eliminate here is this balloon here on the side, because I think that this one is just a distraction, because you just want to see just her face and that balloon, and not have your eyes anywhere else. So looking at this, and I know it's tough with kids, maybe they don't want to let go, but I would try to maybe encourage her to just hold the one balloon and maybe kind of let you grab onto the others, to kind of keep the simplicity of that image and eliminate the distraction there. And then what you could have done, you know, is just if you wanted to eliminate some of the distraction in the background, you could always clone it out post-processing, but also maybe shooting straight on so that all the planks were behind her. That might make kind of a cool shot. Now, if there's something at the end of the planks that you didn't want in the image, and that was why kind of you didn't want to shoot that way, you could also just play around with shooting her just against the water, with the water behind her. When I'm doing kind of things like this with backlight, it's always a lot of trial and error, and I'll try to get the exact same shot with maybe different settings, might play around, try to underexpose it, for a shot, try to overexpose it for a shot. Try it from an angle where the sun is directly to the side of her, an angle where it's directly behind her head, and just kind of playing around, because no backlight situation, depending on the location and everything that day, is going to be exactly the same. So I like to kind of give myself options for when I'm editing, and sometimes it's easier to edit an overexposed or an underexposed image when you're dealing with backlighting, because it is so tricky. So, I wouldn't get frustrated with it. I would definitely just use it as an opportunity to experiment and play around and try different things. And same, with the white balance as well. Let me look at my notes here. Oh, you had mentioned the color cast from the balloons on her face. And I know what you mean. That always irritates me when I have something with my daughter that's causing a color cast. But it is pretty easy to remove post-processing in Photoshop with masking and stuff. So even though it's definitely not ideal, and if you could eliminate the color cast, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I would just kind of worry, trying to make sure that you have everything else that you like in the shot, and then kind of deal with that in post-processing. But I'm with you definitely that if you can eliminate it, that would be awesome. But you can't always, and sometimes I just, I deal with it and then I kind of take it off. Now, if it's in something you're shooting, for example, like an event where there's shot after shot after shot and tons of shots, and you're going to have to go through and do it on all those shots, and that's, that's a different story, and that I would definitely try to eliminate it. But single shots like this, I wouldn't worry too much about. Let's look at the editing. Let me pull these up side by side. I like the idea. I like the contrast that you've added here. I can see that you have a bit of an overlay here. So I would probably go through and maybe soften that a bit, or maybe adjust the opacity of that so that you can't quite see the lines from the overlay quite as much. And I'm not even sure that you really need it. It's tough to say. I mean, because there is kind of that natural haze kind of coming in anyway. I didn't edit the image. What I would have done is just brighten it. This is just brightening it, her face in Lightroom. I usually like to take all the shadows off of the backlit image, and then I would have taken this image into Photoshop, and then in Photoshop I would have adjusted the color and the blackness. But I just kind of wanted to show you quickly what I would do in Lightroom before I carried it over into Photoshop. But I would have gone from this here. I would have gone more in this direction with the background, with the crispness of the colors and the balloon. But I think I would have tried to brighten her face a little bit more. And by starting with a clean base, I think like this in Lightroom, and then kind of maybe doing your edits. I know you said you use Photoshop Elements. Then you can use masking to kind of keep her face a little bit brighter. But yeah, that would be my thoughts there. And I think, again, this whole little area with her face and the balloon is super adorable. I would just wish to not have that there kind of blocking it. And then, let me see, it looks like you had some questions on the end, so let me look at that. Oh, okay, so you asked, are you messing up with the locations? I don't think so at all. I don't think the locations are a problem. I think, you've got some really cool spots with some really pretty lighting. And, awesome shots, I think, can be done in the most kind of unlikely of locations, as long as they're being shot from the right angle and things like that. So I think looking at these three pictures, the biggest thing I would keep in mind, my biggest piece of advice with the locations would be to just eliminate the distractions when you can. Crop in closer if necessary. If there's something in the background you don't want, maybe stand up and shoot from above over the subject to eliminate having the distraction in the background, or move closer to crop in further. Take things out of the shot like the extra balloon or things like that. I think that, excuse me, the beauty of these images is, the simplicity of childhood and wonderment, and you have her looking in the reflection, and then you have her kind of hiding behind the bench, and then you have her just looking at you holding the balloon, and there's such sweet emotion in those shots, and it really is an emotional thing, and that's kind of what you're going for. And so by focusing on that simplicity and eliminating anything from the location, from the background that would distract from that would probably be my biggest piece of advice. But that's something that is easy to do because, you've got your locations are great, and you're just kind of going to just become a little bit more aware of the other things in the frame that could possibly, distract from your subject. You asked if you were messing up with the lighting. And no, I don't think that you are at all. I think that, when playing around and getting comfortable with different types of lighting, it's important to just experiment. Every night is going to be different. And like I was saying before, putting different angles between you, the subject, and the light, try different settings, and then play around with editing and kind of get an idea of what you like. But I don't think that there's, a set formula. I think that with backlighting, it's a lot of creativity and it's finding something that you're comfortable with. So, the light you're working with, you have really pretty light, and, it looks like you have an eye for that pretty light, so I would definitely not give up on it. You asked, are you messing up with the settings? I don't think so at all. I think the settings look great. I don't really have any, too much advice there. I think that everything looks good there. You said you feel like the wow shots are eluding you. I think you've got the elements are there. I mean, I think it's adorable. I think that, you're focusing on kind of the right emotions. I think the biggest thing, like I said before, is just the distractions. If you can just kind of, focus on the heart of the image and kind of eliminate any of those distracting elements, I think that you'll be right there. And as far as feeling down this week, don't feel down. You have, like I said, beautiful elements in your images. Some minor tweaks make big differences. So it's kind of just training your eye to look for those things. If you're ever shooting and you're just not feeling it, the lighting's not right, you're frustrated, something feels like it's not working, then my advice would be to just don't force it, because the last thing you want is to, be frustrated with your work and kind of lose the passion, because that does reflect, I think, in images. So if you ever feel that way, I would just put the camera down and then pick it up again the next day and just go at it again. I just wouldn't want you to get frustrated to the point where you lose the joy of it, because I think you've definitely got some awesome things that you're working with. So hopefully that helps a bit. Like I say, if you have questions, feel free to post them in the forum, and I will get back to you this week. And my computer just shut off. And that's it. So have a great week, and looking forward to seeing your work next week. Thanks.